Hello, you're watching NSG News, and this is the hot seat, Ghana's authoritative rhetoric program. And today we have a very important and a resourceful individual, a Ghanaian, and we've come to see him because it's an election year, and we want to understand the atmosphere and the scope of security, national security, as far as Ghana and people is concerned. So without much ado, I introduce to you Professor Kwesi Aning. You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
I hope I'm pronouncing the name right.
It's okay.
I love to get it right, so
Yeah.
it's
No, it's
Aning.
okay. Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. So you've heard my introduction. The hot seat is not because you've done anything wrong. It's the hot seat because aim. So I'm a Ghanaian who I'm passionate about how Ghana should be. So when you see that I ask questions from country and people point, with the hope whoever is there answers questions to help us build the country. But as said, today we're going to talk a bit about security, and as security and corruption works hand in hand, we will touch note on those as time will allow us. But before we do, as a professor, it's a long journey. We can't just jump to talk about what you know or what we should be doing as a country. We want to know a little bit about yourself. Who is Professor Kwesi Aning?
Well, just for 30 seconds, I think the important thing is to start from the side of the family. You know, my mother is 90 years old. She went to Wesley Girls when she was 11.
90?
Yes, 90 years old, yes. My father is 90 years old. He went to Fransman School when he was 11 and a half. So I come from a long family tradition of educated people, but also public servants who have served this country with honesty and dignity and integrity, which are essential commodities now.
Yes.
I followed Dad's footsteps, went to Fransman School, similar to my two sisters who went to Wesley Girls, read history at the University of Ghana. Took part in the demonstrations in the early 80s. They went into exile in Denmark for several years, came back in 2000.
Your dad? Who went to exile?
Myself.
Oh, you went to exile?
Yeah. Came back in 2000 and, I've tried to contribute to how this country is shaped democratically, but I can assure you it's not an easy battle. But we've got to be driven by a greater integrity to contribute to building a society in which our children don't have to become modern slaves elsewhere.
Yes.
And I think for me that is what drives me. The values that I learned from home as a child, the training at Fransman School, and then also as I've grown and gotten a global status and exposure, that I've decided to come back home to contribute to nation building.
If I may ask, what is the reason for you going into exile?
Well, if you remember, part of what has made Ghana what we are and contributed to stabilizing this country were two developments that I think we haven't written about and understood it too well. One was the June 4th revolution that had its excesses. The second was the 1981 second coming of J.J. Rawlings.
Yeah.
That also started along a revolutionary, pathways, had a clash between the conservative sections of society and the young radicals and the not so young radicals around Mr. Rawlings, and the role of students and their leadership around that time. Closure of universities, excessive brutalities, and out of that, quite a number of us then went into exile.
Yeah.
But let me say this and say it very clearly, and I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding around it.
Yeah.
Had the 1981 revolution not taken place, probably something much worse, similar to Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone might have happened in this country. So the 1981 revolution served as a valve that opened up for release of some of the tensions and for certain restructuring of the state of Ghana. As to whether that restructuring has been successful or not is debatable, but it certainly did prevent us from heading into abyss then.
Yeah. Former Director of Faculty, Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan, International Peacekeeping. My audience, I want you to know that we are not just speaking to just somebody. He has done a lot, and he's still doing a lot. So listen. Now, Clinical Professor of Peacekeeping practice at Kennesaw State University, Atlanta. He holds a doctorate in political science from the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, 1998. BA Honors. History from the University of Ghana, 1986. He served with African Union from 2005 to 2007 as the first continental expert on the common African defense and security, policy and counter-terrorism located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with a responsibility for African Center for the Study and Research on Terrorism. Few more, he served as a senior consultant to the Department of Political Affairs of the United Nations, New York, the Secretary General's report for the Security Council on the relationship between UN and regional organizations, especially the African Union in 2008. Some up there. But there's more. He served on the World Economic Forum Council on Conflict Prevention in 2006, appointed as the first independent evaluator of the UN's global program on strengthening the legal regime against terrorism. In 2014, he again wrote together with Peter Allen the second evaluation report on United Nations Global Report. Can we keep going? It's not finishing. I'm trying to finish, but it's not finishing, Prof.
No, let's finish then.
Let's finish it. I'll give them two more, then we finish it there. In 2015, he was appointed the United Nations Secretary General to serve as a member of his advisory group to the Peace Building Fund. That's beautiful. And you've published over 150 books, including books, chapters, journals, and I can keep going. But you said I should just sum it here. I encourage you all to read a bit about Professor Kwesi Aning.
Well,
so
let me
in
tell
summary,
you why,
tell a little bit more. I've just gone through some lists.
So let me tell you why I wanted you to stop.
Yeah.
Because this is a country that doesn't celebrate success.
Why?
This is a country that eats and destroys its successful people. You know, so I try to keep below the radar because, I mean, from what you've read, I led the UN evaluation to the Maldives.
Yep.
In 2021, and also, if you remember, there was the Easter bombings in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
I did that evaluation also for the United Nations in 2023. Right now, I'm evaluating every single South African development community country on preventing violent extremism and terrorism. Why do I bring this in?
Please tell our
every
audience.
Time I open my mouth about whether terrorists are coming or are not coming to Ghana, people get angry because there's this false universalizing language that the terrorists are coming down south. And based on my experience, I'm saying they are not coming.
That's right.
You know, so there's a way in which knowledge production and distribution, particularly if it's based on the truth and honesty. Well, a lot of people are talking about violence, corruption, terrorism, extremism, but they've never been to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I retire now and have a bit more time on my hands, I'm beginning to ask myself a very fundamental question. How do we generate the knowledge that we need to improve ourselves? And I think you've mentioned the word security a couple of times.
Yeah.
So in 2021, I spent almost a year, actually from 2020, with a colleague of mine, Dr. Danso, we asked ourselves a very fundamental question. How are the narratives about security generated when it relates to Africa. So after 2.5 years of doing that research and challenging the notions of security and insecurity in Africa, we published it in this journal, Journal of International Affairs.
Okay.
That was then submitted to a competition by the journal spanning all the articles written over 100 years. And that article was adjudged by my peers to be the very best article within the space of 1 century. Now, this is the first time probably that I am talking about it, because in this country, when I talk about it, Dr. Danso and I will not be praised. People will say, how do we stab them in the back? How do we destroy them?
Why that?
Well, I mean, we are an envious country where meritocracy is not respected.
But then the young ones have to learn from your achievement and the success.
Well, I think when they go to school and they are lucky enough to go to a good school like that, they'll read those articles.
But if they don't, it should be in the media, it should be in the news, it should be everywhere.
Then we have lost. Because I'll repeat it, this is not a country that celebrates its citizens who become successful.
How do we change that?
Well, of course, we all must contribute to changing that. We all must contribute to striving for excellence, purely for the sake, of producing excellent knowledge, but then transitioning or transforming it into implementable, policies that can transform lives. Knowledge is useless if it doesn't transform lives.
That's right.
The position that you have is utterly useless if it does not transform and touch lives of ordinary people.
Exactly.
Those are the things that I learned from my father and my mother. So let me come back to Dad. So Dad, during Dr. Buzier's regime, Dr. Buzier had established something called the Department of Rural Development, in which Dad was the national director, and across this country built low-cost houses, built community clinics. Two things. When Dad built both a community clinic and these low-cost houses in his town, he refused to let any of his family members buy any of it.
Oh.
Because he wanted to set an example that you don't go into public office to satisfy your family. That is not what public service means. Okay?
That's very commendable.
Yeah. But what is the end result? If he didn't have honest children to look after him, he would have been a poor man.
Yeah.
So the symbolism in this story is that there are tens of thousands of honest Ghanaians who have served this country honestly, are living on their tiny pensions that are worth nothing, and they sit back and reflect and ask themselves, was it worth sacrificing for Ghana? Was it worth doing public service? And I think this is a conversation that we need to have, because right now we are celebrating mediocrity. We are celebrating using public office as a conduit and a vehicle for the amassing of personal wealth. And therein lies the earlier point that you made, the possible connection between elections, violence, and how that impacts on national security.
Yes.
Because we are seeing politics and getting into public office as an end in itself. We don't see it as a process through which we should use the power that we have begged the people of the country for, and for which they've trusted us with that power to transform their lives. And I mean, were we to go to Tashika or go into any part of Ghana and blindly ask people, since 1992, if you can remember that, to what extent, in what areas has your life changed? And I think the answer will be absolutely shocking and disappointing.
To attest to that, it's a fact that you see some areas that used to be good roads and they are not good roads anymore. Some facilities have gone to very deplorable states. So I can personally, as a Ghanaian, can attest to that. But before we take the scope of yourself, because we can keep talking about you. We can keep talking about you the whole day, because I've not even finished the list I have there. You say, hold on. So I've decided to hold on. So, but I want to ask this. In this, your achievement, the journey, projects, serving, both nationally and internationally, any spectacular or risky or interesting story you would like to tell us that you remember, that it's either good, bad, but just for the audience to hear some of the things you have dealt with? Any specific story you would like to tell us?
Well, I think for me, the abiding lesson as I retire and take a back seat is that we should deliver, help people, open doors without expecting even those that you have helped to turn around and say thank you or to help you. Because were you to expect that most minimal of human gestures, thank you will not help anybody. So throughout my stay and all my working experiences, what has driven me is that I need to leave that place much better, but also to mentor people who will do much better than myself. And when I turn my back, if they come looking for me to say thank you, that's okay, but I don't expect it. And I think for me that is the greatest lesson. That people, you need to trust people until they give you a cause not to trust them. That gives you the encouragement to it. But also the sheer joy of molding somebody and seeing the person rise to the top. And I can count across the world quite a number of people that I have trained center who have done very well. But I always insist that don't come back to me and give me a job, a consultancy. There are other people who need it and who need opportunities.
Why do you have to come for you for consultancy? Because you're the man for the job. What stops them?
No, there are other people who can do it. I have more than enough on my table. And I think as a human being, we need to reach a point where we say we are satisfied with what we have achieved and we are satisfied with what we have got. And that we should open those opportunities for it. I am a very content man. My two children are very successful. So
tell us in what industrial sector do you see your children are?
No, my son is a partner in the UK company. I think the world's FPI, I think it is. He's a senior director there.
Okay.
Young man. My daughter, Rikua, is seeking to go and do another master's at London School of Economics on gender and international relations.
The academic energy rubs all of them.
Well, I mean, probably Rikua might follow my footsteps, but I think
so. It's in the bloodline.
Well, I mean, from my.
So we just have to. It's in the bloodline. They cannot but love to study to show themselves approved.
I mean, had they become a mason, an electrician, and a mechanic, I would not have had any problems with it. But I think the importance here is to specialize in an area that you like, and through that, you do well. So if you look on the roof of my office, this thing has been painted more than 10 times. Please, if you can paint the thing up there. Okay? One, it just shows the bad quality of workmanship and the bogusness of the quality of the paint that they use. So, if Kweku or Ekua could have become a painter, a carpenter, an electrician, and still done work to a global standard. For me, that is what drives me. Whatever you do it well. So I do a bit of cattle rearing, And I tried to build a cattle ranch just like an European cattle ranch.
Yeah.
So my cattle sleep well, they drink good water,
Yes.
and they are happy cattle. The quality of the milk is fantastic.
Yeah.
But these are little things that in this country we tend to take for granted.
Exactly.
But I am saying that I've gone out there and I'm bringing global standards here. So when I used to work at the Professional Peacekeeping Training Center, consistently over the past decade and a half, this institution has been run as one of the most important international relations training institutions. And you don't achieve that kind of international recognition if you don't play with global standards.
Yeah.
Does that make me friends? No. Because I think people want a situation. No.
Delivering to the international standards should make you the favorite of me. Why? I was going to ask you, do you feel threatened sometimes in your job, delivering to that standard?
In terms of doing my job, there will be some hesitation, but not threat. I think the threats come more from the political side.
Right.
Yeah. But I think there's irritation when you want to push people back to rewrite the article 10 times.
Yeah.
So that creates a little bit of irritation.
Okay.
I think when you keep on pushing, then you get it right. And I think as a leader, you also consistently got to encourage those that you are mentoring. Then you also go through the same process.
Yeah.
So this morning I had one of my colleagues who came to see me, and the article had been rejected by a very high impact factor journal. And I told him, hang on, let me show you something. So I printed an article of mine that has taken 2 years in getting it finally accepted. And even when it has been accepted, I showed her all the trackings for the very final revisions. So it's about the consistency and the determination to deliver as optimally as possible. And that takes strong personal will. You've got to be some dreamer of some sort. There's got to be some self-sacrifice. Yes, I like a little bit of malt whiskey when I'm relaxing. But you cannot drink 2 glasses of malt whiskey. How do you do your work? Now, this one. Malt whiskey. So I think I've got you there.
Now I'm saying nothing. I'm not going to say anything.
I don't want to mention any malt whiskey names so that the people of Scotland don't start to fight among themselves. Well, I mean, I could say, maybe we can go.
It's allowed. It's allowed.
It's
allowed. It looks like, I think we need to have a whole exclusive on you where we just document your journey, how things are, what the youth should learn from you, how they should, because we can spend the whole day talking about you.
Yeah, so probably we should start.
Let's I promise we'll stay in touch. But we want to have just about you, family journey, the challenges, so people can learn. Because I believe our country can only change through the mentality and mindset can only change by hearing what those that have achieved something have done. And that motivates us.
But that achievement, what is it that has changed in our society? That now when you have a physical handicap, people think you cannot achieve. My two brothers and I, are stubborns. But that has not stopped any of us from becoming teachers or doing what we want to do. So when you come from a society or from a family that has also faced the dismissiveness of society, it gives you this extra edge to be able to beat your detractors. And I make no bones about it at all. That determination, hard work, sacrifice will always get anyone to the very top, irrespective of what your challenges are.
No, honestly, we will come back.
Okay.
So long as you keep your doors open, we'll come back.
That's why
There's no way one day you will check out of here. We want to have records of you telling us yourself what it has been. We've had few, but I think there's more.
Well, there's considerably more. I mean,
there's so much more. So we will have a Professor Kwesi Aning exclusive.
Well, you come and sit in my garden because
I love that.
Once more, one of the challenges I have in this country.
And what you talked about earlier, you can put it on the table.
Yeah. Oh yes. In different formats.
Yes.
One of the things that worries me in this country, is that people put out these spectacular houses, and there's not a single tree. Everything is pavemented, and then when it rains, they are flats. I mean, how stupid can we be? Okay? We'll buy a ticket, fly to some other country, and admire the beauty of the greenery.
Yes.
Okay? So next time we will do it.
I'll keep my tap on you on that until we do it.
Yes.
I want us to do it.
And I'll cook for you also.
Yes. I'm a good cook to you.
Excellent. Then we will
be in the kitchen together.
Yes. I haven't got my pot belly purely.
My wife tells me I'm looking round now.
Well, I get that complaint from my daughter who now can't support the fat and wants me to eat organic food, which I think I've started and I think it's very healthy.
It's very healthy. Okay, I'll practice that. I'll observe it. Yeah. Now, let's come to some few fundamentals as we are in the election year. And we've talked about the fact that, it's a fact that corruption and national security go hand in hand. Accountability, probity, the absence of it means the country could be in a state that could trigger anything. But we don't want to speculate. So we've come to you as the security expert. We've read some of the things you read, you work with peacekeeping, to ask questions. And hopefully time will allow us to be able to go through it. The level of corruption in Ghana, by virtue of your intel, rumors, allegation, common knowledge in Ghana, do you think Ghana is a threat of any disturbance, especially in this election year?
Well, I think when you talk about corruption, I've stated this in occupancy, that corruption is the glue that binds us together. It's not religion. It's not ethnicity. It's not our education. It's not our penchant and our love for the black stars. That is corruption. And I think the office of the special prosecutor, probably you should try and get a meeting with the special prosecutor.
You are right. And you talked about a lot of them don't want to sit on the hot seat. I don't know why.
I think the special prosecutor might possibly speak. But I think he's
we've got a lot of people, they don't want to sit on the hot seat. I think the name hot seat scares them.
Oh, I think TV3 had hot issues with Kwesi and that. But, I mean, be that as it be, I think corruption has become the single existential threat to this country. Yeah. I think corruption has become so widespread and embedded that we don't even know what corruption is. For you to ask or go to time and ask people, what is corruption? They'll be pointing fingers at every other person apart from themselves and what they are doing is. And when statutory institutions also behave in ways that send signal that they don't want to work or they're working against each other, then it becomes a problem. Let me give just one example. If you take the example of an artisanal small-scale gold mining, popularly known as Galamsay, and you check the role of the Chinese, the Burkinabes, the Ivorians, then you ask yourself, how is it possible that this can be done? Now, over the years, we've heard of this girl, Miss Aisha. I want to talk about this particular girl because when His Excellency the President gave the statement that he was shocked whether the girl was in town or had been deported. And please go and look at the video. You could see the face of shock or the expression of shock on the face of his Minister for Information. Now, that video was the precursor to all kinds of things that happened subsequently. First, we were not even sure whether this girl had been deported or not. So the head of immigration brought Ethiopian Airlines seat number. And the Attorney General's office did not know. The police prosecutor said that she had been deported. Now, when you have state institutions, and I think the senior minister said, well, China is too powerful, so we cannot deal with the woman. When you have your own national institutions dealing with a petty criminal and unable to give the citizenry the most basic facts around that individual, then it raises particular concerns as to whether the state and these institutions are interested in getting to the bottom of the case.
You mentioned Aisha, and actually that brings to my mind that is either yourself or one other prominent individual in Ghana that made a statement that she's a Chinese spy.
I said.
Oh, okay.
And I have not retracted it, and I won't retract it.
Maybe it's possible it's true because understandably China is actually moving to a point where they want to become cocoa producers.
Yeah, sure.
So could it be it's a deliberate act to actually sabotage our cocoa farm? Would you look at it from that point? If she's a spy and they are destroying our cocoa farm using all the strange stuff that they used to.
Well, this is the ABC of economic espionage. So if those who are closed, housed, whose cars are filled with my taxpayers' money, the petrol, are not thinking this way and writing the risk assessment and analysis and offering it to the president and the appropriate parliamentary committees, then we have a problem.
Yes.
Because if you look at every single community that has Galamsay, we are seeing its impact on public health.
Yes.
We are seeing its impact on the destruction of water bodies, the environment broadly. We are seeing the economic impact. So we are seeing Galamsay and its net negative impact in terms of corrupting state institutions, individuals, blah, 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 blah. Then you ask yourself, what has Ghana got now from it? Because under President Mohammed's government or else, there was some initiative to bring it under control. I think we've now have repression, vanguard. So what is it? Because state efficacy and effectiveness is for the state to say, this is the law, and you dare not break it. Yeah. But here, we are seeing instances where those who ought to implement the law and apply it themselves are colluding with those who are undermining the state. Okay, the end result is that the state and its representatives are losing trust and respect amongst the people. So if you see a lot of the TikTok things happening, you see instances or cases where the president is speaking and somebody comes to hit him. Okay? Yeah. And I get sad and worried when I see those things because, you see, the presidency, or in your case, the prime ministerial office, almost have some spiritual connotations to it. It embodies the soul and the identity of the state. Yes. That's what it should be. You may disagree with the person, but you cannot disrespect the person. But I think the state of Ghana and its representatives have lost so much credibility and respect among the citizens that now people can basically just. Because immediately we don't see the individuals representing the state and our interests as embodying our collective desire to be stable. And of course, we need to demand. That is a responsibility and duty also to perform optimally. Then we are beginning that very slippery downward slope towards collapse.
Talk about Galamsay, even though that was, this is a whole topic we have to actually talk about, but we cannot not talk about it as you have mentioned it just briefly. And I'll tie it together with where you said is the corruption is the glue that binds a country, and then you double down on it to say the edifice called Ghana Enterprise will collapse without corruption.
Yeah.
That's serious. My first question is, how do we turn it around? Because we want the country to function normally as a viable, solid, formidable socio-economic country. Right. Why is the Galamsay a partisan politics, even though the evidence of destruction is real?
Yeah. No, Galamsay is not partisan politics. Several years ago, I think in 2017-18, I did an interview where I argued strongly. Now look, Mr. Excellency the President, you want to take on the big corruption fight. That is good. But let's start with one particular area and understand how corruption works. Then when we understand how that works, we can extrapolate it to other areas with some tweaks. And I have suggested Galamsay, as the one activity that we're going to understand the network, the interdependencies, the interconnections, and the levels of pollution and the incentives that drive and the stakeholders. Then we can move on to the timber or the rosewood business and other things. Within hours of saying this, Mr. Cameron Dodo, and I let him off the hook because his son was mandated in transport school. He's like my father. I don't want to try. He wrote and said things. I'm actually expecting him to come back and to apologize. That probably I didn't listen to you well, or I didn't understand what you meant. Okay? He said all kinds of things that were very unfortunate. But that you know, listen. Galamsay and the rosewood business. It demonstrates the complexity when we talk about corruption. Because you take their state institutions in one. I mean, how is the gold transported and we don't catch the people?
Good question.
And similar to the rosewood tree business. Okay, so what I'm saying is that whilst we all talk corruption, it is not just one institution, it is not just a group of people. You need a host of institutions, individuals, and groups to make it possible. So we need to understand even how we document how much Galamsay gold comes into the state system. Okay? And those who know forensic accounting will tell you that probably we are accounting only for the tip of the iceberg. Similar to the rosewood.
Yeah.
Okay? Rosewood is cut in the northern part of Ghana. This is a specific type of hardwood whose harvesting is banned by international convention.
Yeah.
Okay? But people are capable of transporting this over 800 kilometers down to the ports. Now, anybody who travels around this country knows all the roadblocks. So what kind of certificates do they use to cross the roadblocks? And how do they get it through Ten Harbor or Takoradi? If not, that those who ought to be checking this are also involved.
So in summary, corruption is a cancer that has spread, and it's my question.
Spreading, multiplying into different cancers.
Into different cancers.
Because the lady who is leading the rosewood business is a cousin to Aisha. So we have two Chinese girls leading two criminal enterprises. Galamsay and Rosewood. Okay, it's almost impossible to get the data on how many rosewood trees are felled and transported, except through some American environmental organization. And sometimes when the Chinese are generous, they'll give us some of the data. So when we talk corruption, it has seeped into the very fabric of society.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me give a very simple example. If you mix Gary and palm oil and beans, it can be mixed in such a way that, yes, the oil is around the Gary and the beans.
Yeah.
But you can put so much oil that the Gary itself is soaked in the oil.
Yes.
So that when you mash it, it's still the oil that you see.
Yeah. You can even drain it.
Yeah, drain it. That is what corruption is. Has done to Ghana.
So
It
Ghana's
is in our
corruption
DNA.
is to a point that you can drain it. You
Yes.
squeeze it, you drain corruption.
It's in our DNA now.
So if corruption is that way widespread from all levels and structures and institutions, now let's take it to security then.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a danger to country and people because it's affecting livelihood. It's affecting the socio-economic stand of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so because only a few benefit eventually, and the mass majority, nothing much. So based on your intel, public allegations, rumors, common knowledge, is Ghana at risk of any sort of security threat as far as this election year is concerned? Corruption
So
is
let
the
me
reason.
come back to your usage of the word intel. You know, in Africa, the word intelligence creates apoplecsis of fear and anger.
Why?
Because there's this misconception that only intelligence is some hoodios. I need to come and look under your bed. That kind of thing.
Prof.
Okay, intelligence is only.
Should I come look under your bed?
Yeah, please come and look under my chair. Maybe there's something there. Okay, it's only getting the raw data,
Yeah.
doing the analysis.
That's it.
And then drawing some inference.
That's intel.
From it. But here, if you use intel, then there's a lot of source.
In that, having explained it in
Yeah.
that context, I
Yeah.
mean that the
Yeah.
information available to you,
Yeah.
you've
So let me come back to my
Yeah.
earlier point. There is this notion that the terrorists are coming. Okay? And you've asked me whether towards the election there can be some difficulties. First, I want to dispel this notion that terrorists are not interested in coming if we ourselves have not laid the foundation
yeah,
to enable them to come
yeah,
and to thrive.
okay,
So you talk about from now to the elections. So I want to turn it around and ask a couple of questions. Not that we can answer it now. Why is Galamsay thriving now much more than, say, a year and a half ago? Because all political parties are going to the miners and giving them promises so that they can get funding and they can get votes. Okay?
okay,
We have Act 999 that bans vigilantes in Ghana. Apart from corruption, every election year, and it's getting worse per every election cycle, violence becomes a currency
yeah,
that is traded amongst and between politicians and political parties. So we haven't seen vigilante activities yet because the campaigns have not started.
yeah,
Now, the delay in starting the campaign itself has a potential debilitating security impact because the campaign period is going to be squeezed within a short period.
yeah,
There's going to be unnecessary speeding on the roads, driving all of us off the road,
yeah,
killing people. Hopefully, some of them, their own cars may overturn. And when they die themselves, maybe they will slow down.
yeah,
Okay? But the narrative of insightful language, turning the other as the enemy, is going to increase. Now, when you squeeze that insightful language and intimidating behavior within a short space of time, because we are almost in July.
Yes.
So July, August, September, October, November, December. We have max only 5 months of campaigning.
Yes.
Never happened before in this country's history.
What's the holdback?
Pardon?
What is the holdback? Is it a strategy?
Well, that's a bogus strategy then, and a dangerous one. Because when it's squeezed between this short space of time, then of course the tensions are also squeezed within the short space of time.
Yeah.
So the institutional frameworks for dealing with these tensions, National Peace Council, National Commission for Civic Education, will not have the time to understand what is happening, tone down the tensions, and even the Election Security Task Force will really have their job cut out for them. So if we look only through the election 2024 lens, then already we can see that there have been some very dirty, nasty descriptions of women who have been nominated and appointed to positions in the opposition party.
Yeah.
Okay? Language that cannot and must not be tolerated in a country that perceives itself as enlightened.
Yeah.
Okay? So, the elections are creating its own dynamics of insecurity. And I'm afraid because of the shortened period for the campaigning, that'll make it much worse.
When you said the campaigns are being delayed, is it the official embargo that is normally laid not to campaign? Is it that the official lifting of the ban?
No, there's never any ban in Ghana.
Okay, so
actually in Ghana,
so why is it a strategy? Is it to make sure
know.
the country is destabilized? Because from what you have described, it being short means that even to deal with the challenges becomes a challenge.
No, I don't think they have thought about it.
So is it a deliberate act?
I doubt very much if you were to speak to any of the political parties and you were to ask them, what does it mean for our security and stability that you haven't started campaigning? They'll tell you, it doesn't mean anything. This is 40 years of assessment and looking at things.
Yeah, we should hear you because you've dealt with these things. And even on the basic principles of science, when you squeeze things into a very small container, you want it to explode.
Certainly. Okay, but people don't think this way.
That's not. That doesn't mean it's not looking good for us. Is that what it is?
No. I mean, over the years, my approach to my work is to look at the counterfactuals.
Yep.
Okay. 99% of Ghanaian analysts and elsewhere only look at what is obvious and in front of them. You can't blame them for it.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to look at the counterfactuals. And people will tell you what the advantages are. But when you have a situation where you have, if you go to the Galamsay site, it's the same boys who will do a rational choice analysis. If I were to follow you as against going into the pit for 3 months, this is what you have promised me as against what I'll get from coming to the pit. I'll follow you. I have my guns already.
Yep.
And I'm willing to do whatever you want to tell me to do. Now, when you squeeze all those tensions and they combust within the 6 months, then something will happen.
Are you sure?
Let's not forget
Go on, sir.
that in 2020, I think there were 8 or 9 people who died.
Yeah.
That has not been resolved, so that is in people's minds.
Yeah.
People may be looking for revenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so from where I sit, when I throw all these variables into my basket, and like a good juju man, nowadays you see all these juju men even advertising.
Yes.
And my favorite one is Alaji Baba Fear God. He can solve every problem on earth.
You should solve our problem for us.
Except the election-related violence. Even these pastors also, the city should rise. They perform all kinds of miracles.
But they pray for the city to rise. The city didn't rise.
Abi?
Say, Abi.
They perform miracles, cripples walk all over the world, but they don't perform in Ghana.
Maybe that Ghana is on a special course that those things don't work.
Maybe on a special course to some place that they are afraid even to go there to prevent.
Prof, now let's look at this. You painted, I don't want to say a very, don't use the word dangerous, but questionable positioning as far as the shortening of the elections is concerned. And you've talked about election violence, which has always been since 1992.
Yeah.
Now, let me add a little bit more as you continue to break these things down for us. Since 1992, our leadership tends to refuse constructive criticism. Once they are mandated, they intimidate, they threaten people. And let me just read it out here. And that seems to have affected our, what do you call it? It's called the press freedom ranking. Press is to report freely, factually, too. And this is the picture being painted. And you're telling us that the elections being shortened is also, it could become a danger, especially the response of the security agencies to any possible violence. How do you reconcile all these things?
Oh, I mean, as for the security agencies, they will deliver based on their mandate. I mean, the Ghana Police Service is the primary agency for, there will be an election security task force led by the Ghana Police Service. And I think there's no doubt at all that the present IGP, since he came into office, has improved the credibility ratings of the Ghana Police Service, irrespective of the criticisms that are going around. But let me come back to something that you mentioned about the press ratings.
Yes.
The quality of journalism in Ghana is poor.
Yes. Why?
I mean, I do a lot of.
Let me play the questionable advocate. I don't like the word devil's advocate. The questionable advocate.
Yeah.
Why that?
I mean, a journalist will call me sometimes at 5 a.m. and I wonder, what's your problem? I don't have a contract with you.
Yep.
You are seeking favors from me. But most journalists in Ghana have this mentality that we are doing you a favor because we are going to speak on our radio or television. And I always tell them, but if I have a slip of tongue, I deal with the blowback. So you should actually be happy that I'm speaking to you. That's
right.
Number one. Number two, that was why I was smiling when you were insisting whether you had pronounced my name well. 9 out of 10 journalists who call me for an interview, they can't pronounce my name. And I tell them, go back and learn how to pronounce it, because had my name been Johnson, Hansen, Jensen, Frank, Rishi Sunak, you would have pronounced it.
Yeah.
Number 3, they don't even know where I work and how to pronounce my office name. Okay? The thinking is that I'm doing you a favor. You can call your family and friends. Let them listen to you that you are on radio. What stupidity. Furthermore, some of them will call and say, oh, so what questions should we ask? And I ask you, but what kind of stupidity is this? I'm sitting in my village. You call me and say you want to do an interview on ABCD, but you want me to give you the questions, so you ask me.
You gave me all these questions.
So there was a case where
I came armed with my questions.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
There was a case where Peace FM.
Yes.
I think a journalist had called me, and as usual, I don't tolerate stupidity.
Yeah.
So told this person off. They recorded it and they were using it as a jingle. They did not realize the unprofessional levels of behavior until Kweku Baako called them and said, Abi, you can't do this. When you want an interview and you don't know the man's name, where he works, and he corrects you, you rather play that as a jingle. That is the quality of journalism.
What could be the reason? The common knowledge again is that our media landscape is polarized with respect to NDC and MPP. They are either affiliated or owned by these two giants. Is that what is affecting the behavior of the media or the reporting
but
itself?
whatever it is, you as the individual must have a certain professional, ethical drive, to present the news in a particular way.
Yeah.
So there are quite a number of stations that probably most stations I don't speak to. So sometimes there are a couple of stations I think in Sunyani, in Kranza, and elsewhere that I like talking to.
Yeah.
Because the producer calls you very well prepared. I remember, I think last year or so, some producer called me and said, but you are not prepared well enough. I said, yes, every time I call you, you don't do it. You don't like to speak vernacular with that. And I said, look, that is not the point. Do your work well. And you see, the fact that you know my telephone number doesn't mean you should get up and call me without sending me a text first. But when you call me during work hours, you are presupposing that I have nothing to do. But I may be in class, I may be in a tutorial, I may be speaking to a student, or I may just have settled down to do some reading, all right? So you send me a text or a WhatsApp message. So we need to have certain basic professional standards that we follow through. But I think
I'll quickly run you, then we go into security, some things that I want to ask you in the few minutes that we have.
Yes, sure.
Democratic accountability. The sustainability of Ghana's democracy largely depends on that. But this intimidation, threats, refusal to allow people to express themselves means that Ghana's democracy is under threat. Is that right? Is that right to think so? Because
but that threat,
the accountability and probity seems to be absent.
Yes, but that threat comes from us. You see, there's this notion that what I get trickles down to people. Therefore, when I criticize you, you don't need to call to threaten me.
No.
Your hangers on and those who think when you are in power they are chopping will do your dirty work. I always say that politicians they speak with 4 voices or 4 tongues. The one when they are speaking with your prime minister, the mellifluous, well-spoken, smart, the one when they are speaking to the larger community. Where they show a certain level of tolerance and understanding. And then when they are speaking where they know that nobody will listen. And so deal with them. Beat them up. And then the final one, which is the more dangerous one, is the unspoken body language. Which you can prove without these license. So those who matter don't need to verbalize or write what they want. Their supporters can interpret what it means, and they will get it. So if you ask me whether the civic space is becoming narrower, that's yes. Okay. The tolerance for diversity of opinions, for critical discourse, for nuanced engagement is getting narrower and narrower.
That's not good for democracy.
Oh, far from it. Far from it. And I think the important thing is to have that integrity and to have that strength of character to continue to engage. So were we to say from 2000 until now, if we take levels of attrition as a result of death, sickness, aging, so people naturally stop doing the conversation.
Yeah.
And we start year 2000 when we reinstated the Fourth Republic, or started the Fourth Republic as our baseline. If there were 100 active, critical thinkers who engaged in the public discourse, probably now they may be about 15 to 20. Okay, so the space has shrunk considerably.
Thank you for that. But we need to do something about it.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
We have to go somewhere with the democracy, which is good. Then there's the need for us to be allowed to express ourselves in a respectful way, in a constructive way, but to say not to be challenged, then what are we into?
Well, I mean,
because that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Personally, even me, some of the concerns people have for me is that what you're doing, be careful. I said, why? But I've done nothing wrong. He said that people don't like the truth. If you keep talking about the truth, you're going to be in trouble.
So, and let me say this way, that there is a wider global recognition that the civic space is closing.
Yeah.
And I think as one travels around the world, one gets a lot of sympathy and understanding, but also encouragement.
Yeah.
Because Ghana goes beyond that 1% of the elite who govern this country. And I think there are people out there and also here. And that is why sometimes I'm very concerned when one wants to come back to the media. There are things that, and I like Mr. Kwesi because he's been consistent. Kwesi has been consistent. What Kwesi says is dismissed, nobody plays. But immediately some American organization or the State Department writes something, or the media houses. And I wonder to myself sometimes, do we still need justification and acceptance from the outside before we recognize what is just among us? And I think that is reflective of my earlier point about the way that we produce, generate knowledge, and the way that we understand that knowledge, and the way that we use it to improve ourselves. But the good thing in Ghana is that even when the civic space closes or narrows, every 8 years or 4 years, people have the opportunity to say, well, you came begging me for power.
Yes.
And when I gave it to you, you treated me like that.
Yeah.
Now, you come back home. And I've seen a lot of these politicians who have lost power.
Yeah.
And their end has not been nice.
Yeah.
I can mention names of former ministers and MPs that I have seen in Cape Coast and around Elmina and elsewhere. And you wonder what has happened. And quite good people learn that power is ephemeral. You're only passing through.
Yeah.
Okay, so deliver, and when you finish, you still come back to your own people. Because you left your people, went to beg them for their vote and for their trust. And when you come back, it's the same people. Like I told you, I've been wearing this dress for 10 years. Does it stop me
It still looks new.
Because when you sweated to buy the thing,
you
take good care of it.
You take good care of it.
But when I know that as a lecturer, I can take money from my students and intimidate them and buy every week, then you don't take good care of it. But I think we will come back to that situation where we learn to live within our means.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, that it's not the outward flashiness that matters. It is the principled, integrity-driven decisions and actions that we take that matters.
Thank you. I'm trying to wrap up this. You did talk about another meeting coming through. So you talked about gradual incremental erosion of personal freedoms of constitutional rights. What is Ghana like with respect to that statement? Now you made that statement on the back of the Guinea coup, in which I'll ask you something briefly on that, so I'll keep it for now. But this gradual erosion of constitutional rights, how is it like in Ghana? Because we're talking about this election, we want to be sure that the temperature is okay as we go into the elections.
No, the temperature will not be okay.
The temperature is not okay.
No, far from it. Because let's not forget the allure of public office, the transformation of individual and familial lives when you get into office is so attractive that people lose their capacity for rationality.
So should we be concerned?
Yeah.
Daniel should be concerned.
Of course.
The temperature is not right. Is he concerned as individuals or concerned as in something Rollins said? And I want to quote, okay? Rollins said something that nobody can instigate the military to take over. Then he doubles down to say, but the state of the country can cause them to take over. You're saying the temperature is not right. Should it be individuals concerned because of, as you said, people are driven for that drunkenness of power? Or that possibility of military saying enough is enough?
No, the military will not say that.
They will not say, okay, we are not there. We are not there.
Any country, particularly for a country like that, let's not forget that our placement in the international community is also based on what other states perceive of us.
Yeah.
And money is very sensitive. So even when we don't have some instability, I don't know how many multinational companies have already run away from Ghana.
I was going to ask you because I heard they are leaving.
Yes.
Is it security reasons or
No.
hardship of
Purely because of the
economy?
economy.
No security.
No.
Not because it's election year.
Oh, no.
I want our audience to take what you say seriously because I'm going to make a reference to something you said that came to pass. So if Professor is saying the companies are not leaving because they are afraid of the election year, I say believe him, and I'll tell you why. If he's saying Ghana's temperature is not with respect to the military wanting to take over, I say believe him because I will reference something he said previously. And so the temperature you're talking about is purely because of the drive of individuals to do whatever it takes to be in office.
To be in office. And that is what will increase the temperature. Because over the last couple of years...
What you're saying, it is not looking good.
Oh, far from it. And the danger is because the campaign period is super short. So it's like now most people, because of air fryer and all these things, they don't even know what a pressure cooker is. It's like you've put all these things in a pressure cooker, and instead of the pressure cooker being 5 liters, you've put all these things in a 1 liter pressure cooker. So normally we'll have an election campaign period of probably 12 months. And we have 5 months.
Now, I'm just going to summarize some things and we'll be wrapping up. But talk about what you're saying now. The time, of course, from my educational background, telling me about pressure, time, space, tells me, it gives me concern how you're putting it. So if all these pockets of events are going to be happening at the same time, and the time and the space is so small to contain it, and the resources to manage it is so small, don't you think that could force those that are mandated with the responsibility to defend country and people, both domestically and internationally, to take charge?
No.
I.e. military?
No.
You don't think that temperature, that pockets of events is enough to force them to do anything?
So let me try to...
So you don't think...
Reassure.
Yes. You don't think the pocket of events is enough to force the military to do anything?
It's enough, but they won't do it.
Is that responsible enough? Because their responsibility is to defend country and people, both domestically and internationally. So if these pockets of events, let me mention something for you straight away. Political and tribal divide is also on the high in our country. So if we are going to allow these pockets of events in a very short time frame, in a short and small space, yet the people that we are mandated to come to our rescue should do this and watch us, is that good? Is that a good thing?
Yes, it's good because it shows the maturity of the institution.
So we should misbehave, kill ourselves till we are down.
No. This is a very ad hoc targeted, specific misbehavior.
Okay, so it can be managed.
On the 9th of December.
It can be managed.
No.
From what you say, can it be managed?
Let me finish.
Okay.
On the 9th of December.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that all these things have been, instead of a 5-liter pressure cooker,
Yeah.
they've been put in a 1-liter pressure cooker.
Seriously tight.
Seriously, Tana, you as an engineer know what this means.
I know.
But on the 9th of December,
Yeah.
if the Electoral Commission declares a result based on a free and fair election, then the citizenry says that represents our will.
Yeah.
Suddenly, that 1-liter pressure cooker will expand to become a 10-liter pressure cooker.
So the Electoral Commissioner holds the key to releasing the container.
Not only the Electoral Commission, once more, the military that you mentioned, the police. So both the police, and let me say this to have your viewers, both the military and the police will jointly be part of the election security task force. And right now, they are already defining what we term in the business as the hotspots, specific constituencies and areas with a history and tradition of violence.
Yeah.
Okay, so already identifying who is doing what, they may want to do what, tracking small arms flows, all those things. Okay, so the politicians on their own will be talking, insulting themselves, inciting each other, accusing the Ghana Police Service of bias, accusing the Electoral Commission of not doing its work well. We will leave the politicians to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will leave them to do their
So
incitement.
we should trust these agencies to not be distracted by those events. They will be focused on their assignment.
They've got to focus on their assignment.
They will.
And what I'm saying is that over time,
Yeah.
these institutions recognize the onerous responsibility that is in place.
Look, honestly, we've come here, and I think the time is now becoming a constraint for us, but we'll have to come back. I think we need to do one more. Apart from our guardian conversation, we need to do one more.
So let me give you just an example.
Yes.
You know, there have been a couple of by-elections
Yes.
that people thought would be violent.
Yeah.
And the classic case where the election was tense was, I think, the Asin something.
It's of a central or something.
Yeah, yes, in the central region, where the Ghana Police Service, even before the elections, went in to provide an eye test and little things that had nothing specifically to do with the election, but at least sought to calm tension. And I think the symbolism of some of these institutional acts, let's not forget the National Commission for Civic Education will be out there. I think on Monday next week, there will be a big conversation at my neighbor institution talking about how to make the military much more effective in responding to some of these challenges. So I think institutionally, particularly towards the elections, there are massive challenges because of the behavior of the political class. But there are people also in this country who have said we will use the institutional mandate that we have to try to build peace. I know that for some of your listeners, they've lost trust in the institutional efficacy.
That's a fact.
And I don't blame them at all. But all I'm saying is that after all these years of training, of engagement, of talking, tensions may go high, tempers will flare, but I think
It can be managed.
there is as a nation with these communities, I think we have the tensile strength to be able to deal with this. But we should not continue to take it for granted.
There's always electoral violence and stuff like that. And the concern is, and some of the concerns out there is this tribal differences, this tribal bigotry from some of our political leaders, which is not good. Saying things like she said, all trust is sometimes. Now, but sometimes when the police and the military wants to do their work during the elections time, you tend to hear on some of the radio stations or some of the allegations against them to say they are politically or government motivated to act against the other political party. That is some of the fear of our people. Because if they are inciting such statements to say the police doing their work in this community is actually against another party, that's not good. So, what do you have to say to that?
So, I want to go back historically a little bit.
Yeah.
And to ask ourselves about issues of national integration and our perception of our Ghanaianness.
Yes.
And therefore, the willingness to work towards building this coherent, functional society. I think partisanship has split this country to such an extent that that's what I say. Even when institutions do what is right, they are criticized. And let's not forget that disinformation and misinformation are key.
It is.
Okay? Very, very, very key. So, knowing the ownership of these stations, sometimes you wonder, why are they saying this in the way that they say?
It seems that we are not doing enough to actually let the country understand. Because even what you said cuts across even the judiciary system. When some processes don't go in favor of certain people, they say it's corruption, they say because government is in it and all those things. As you said, how do we get the populace to come to the understanding that it's not everything that is politically or government orchestrated, it's just the process?
Well, I think it's a matter of political development and engagement.
We've been there since 1992, over 30 years.
Oh, I mean, even if you take it from 1951, I mean, this takes centuries. I mean, I, as a teacher, I think quite a number of my students, when I fail them, think I'm for this fact. I mean, there are times when students will try and threaten me and say I'm the lawyer of so and so, or some parliamentarians will come into my office trying to flex myself, and I always ask myself, how stupid can you be?
Come to your office?
Yeah!
To do what?
Whether they can plead for somebody to pass or... I said, look, you are just very stupid. Were I to be teaching at Oxford,
yes,
will you fly to Oxford and come and beg me? But you think I'm teaching in a Ghanaian institution,
yes,
and we are a corrupt people, so you can come here and beg and not change the minds. Okay? And that is why for me...
And you failed them.
Oh, with great pleasure. Some of them lying down there.
You say I failed them with great...
No, with great pleasure. Now,
so they can learn, so they can go and do it right.
Yeah.
Failure is not the end of things. It just gives you the chance to reassess.
Yeah. But in this country, probably I was talking to my dean this morning.
Yeah.
Probably this is the first place where people fail for the first time in their lives. Because everything in this country is now negotiable. But Chief, you can't negotiate around my mortgage.
No.
I mean, there was one student who called me, some time back, and I think I had failed him or something. Yeah. And he had the audacity to say, I put 5,000 on the table. Yeah.
5,000 guys.
Yeah, 5,000. Maybe those in the city had a little bit more money. So. But if you ask my colleagues, I think they face all these problems. And I tell the person, 5,000 won't buy my favorite bottle of water. But come, let's have another conversation.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
And so that you reassure our viewers, which are Ghanaians and international, we'll make sure this is available to as many as possible, and it's sitting on the internet or forever till Jesus comes. Those that believe Jesus will come. And so now, the security stability in Ghana, on the back of Guinea coup, you rightly predicted there was going to be at least two more coups. Lo and behold, Burkina Faso, September 2022, Niger, July 2023, Gabon, September 2023. You are an international think tank as far as security matters is concerned. I use the word intel, and you said Ghanaians are quite touchy when we use the word intel, but I'll use it again. Based on your intel, Can you predict how Ghana's 2024 election is going to end? Of course, you mentioned some pockets of reassurance, the integrity of the military and the security agencies, how they are collaborating to make sure things function well. But where you're sitting, is there any prediction for Ghana? What would be your prediction for Ghana?
No, I think we'll go through the elections
Successfully.
There may be pockets of tensions, as usual. As I said, we have the institutional framework with the National Peace Council. Yesterday I was talking to some of the regional directors. We have the National Council for Civic Education. We have the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center that always will do some research and use that as a basis to host a national conference for which the community will come out appealing for peace. So I'm quite confident. I'm not moving my investment out of this country to anywhere.
And you rightly said earlier, the report of international companies leaving has nothing to do with the elections, has nothing to do with national security.
If the cedi stabilizes,
they'll come
and it comes back to 3 cedis, the dollar, they will all rush to come back.
Okay.
That has absolutely nothing to do.
So I want to respect your time, and it's very. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the hot seat, and I'm sure our viewers that you have said things that will provoke them to do right as country people and not to look at everything from the lenses of partisan politics. On the hot seat, we call it riding on partisan horses. We should all come off our partisan horses and look at us as first country people before anything else, any umbrella. So, in few words, reassure Ghanaians with your expertise, what you have experienced, few words for Ghanaians before we sum up.
Well, I think everybody has a role to play. I mean, it's not my responsibility or my job to do anything apart from doing what I'm mandated to do it well and honestly.
I mean, you are a statesman, so just to encourage Ghanaians to be calm, that from where you are sitting, you've seen nothing that they should be worried about.
No, I don't think there's any basis at all. And where we ought to be driven by our desire and love for country, and then contribute our little bit. Go out there that day, vote, go home, come back and watch the counting, and then if it's time for you to celebrate, do celebrate, but don't use it as a basis for teasing. And then we will, at the next conversation, then we will discuss what will happen after the new president is sworn.
Thank you very much. It's been a very lovely time being with Prof Kwesi Aning, and very informative and a very resourceful person. Time will not allow us. I'm sure if we have to spend the whole 24 hours here, there's so much to talk about. But as we have said, we'll come your way with the garden conversation we talked about, with some specials on the table, and then we'll have a true conversation about who Professor Kwesi Aning is. Without much ado, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure being on screen with you, and I'm sure our viewers, Ghanaians at large, both abroad and home, will enjoy the conversation. And thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you means we will be back.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
God bless you, sir.
I look forward to
this is NSG News. I'm your host, Aim. And this is the Hot Seat, Ghana's authoritative, patriotic program, and it's about country and people. See you next. Bye for now.